Hey guys, welcome to my video today. Today I'm doing a speed paint while I share some stuff with you about things I learned last year and how that has informed what I'm doing now. I tried some stuff, I failed at some of it, which I always say that failing at 80% of the stuff I try is totally normal, and I love to tell the tale, and maybe you learn from it. So I know we're well into 2018, but I don't think it's ever a bad time for self-reflection. And I know that the stuff I've struggled with is probably some stuff that maybe you have struggled with as well. Not specifically, perhaps, but there may be something in here that you can relate to. I also want to let you guys know how much I've really missed you and why I haven't really been posting any videos since March. So in the last life update video, which was in March, I'll put the link below, I detailed what had been going on in my life, and in a nutshell, I was caring for a very ill relative since late January, and that was really my main focus in my life, and she passed away in late April, unfortunately. After she died, there was a lot to do to wrap things up for her, so I did that for about a month, but I did also concurrently start working again, and the first thing I started doing was painting. And it's a group of paintings. I'm painting one of them for you today. If you'd like to see more of these paintings of this little series, I call them little world paintings, please hop over to my Instagram. I'm at Kathy Weller Art. I'll put a link below to see more and to see my process, which I have in the highlights there. And I also put a link down to the shop so you can see them there and buy them there. So last year was a year that I thought I would be implementing stuff that I was learning in 2016. I had been taking a lot of in-depth stuff on video and delivering information classes. But it turned out to be more of an evolution and experimentation, figuring stuff out and figuring myself out and what I love to do versus forcing myself into a box as I went along the year. And I guess that's all that any of us do. We're always in a constant state of evolution and learning more about ourselves and what works for us and what doesn't. And it's really about being honest with yourself, right? And then doing what works the best for you. Hitting your perfect talents, you know what I mean? So that's what's important. Now let's talk about last year. A year ago, I was sharing teases online of an e-course I was going to launch. Here's the backstory. In summer of 2016, I had created an e-course for a teaching platform that I'm not going to name today, but I'm going to go along and talk about it. So in August of that year, the class launched, and the format for the class was a 3-day live webinar. So after those 3-day live webinar classes, it was then offered up as a recording that people could just buy the recording, take the class that way. So fast forward, I left that teaching platform a couple of months after my class had launched, and I got my e-course back in my possession so I could host it independently or do whatever I wanted with it. The e-course site I had been working with had a very specific format. As I said, they had the 3 consecutive days of live webinars, and I wanted to do it different. So my plan was to reformat the class and some of the material in the class. So I spent a lot of time rethinking, reformatting, redesigning parts of it, and then re-recording it. So I got about halfway through re-recording it when I pressed pause on the project. So why did I do that? Why would I press pause on a project that was basically already all done? I was just redoing it, and the content was all there. So all I had to do was, plow through and re-record it. Well, I had a meeting with a friend, and this is almost exactly a year ago, actually. This is a year ago next week. She's a very smart, she knows this landscape, she knows the audience for my class, and she also knows the niche that my class talks about and teaches. And we went through my class. It was sort of a makeshift coaching session, which is really funny. It didn't start out that way, but that's how it ended up. And ultimately, the questions that our meeting brought up made me reassess everything. It made me reassess how I delivered the information, how it would be consumed by the learner, and that's big. That's very big. Also, let me just say that I don't mean to be vague by not giving specific examples here. I sort of want to stay out of the nitty-gritty details of the content of the course right now because I want to keep the main points of this whole video relevant in a broader way to more people and to not go down a rabbit hole with that more specific stuff. So the topic of the class is relevant to this video though, because that's a big part of the reason why I decided to shelve the class. The class was called Pitching and Packaging Your Character Brand for Licensing. It basically covers most of what I've learned about doing this myself as an independent artist, working with manufacturers, pitching your work to them, getting deals done. So if you're watching this and you don't know me, I have had character humor gift lines with several gift manufacturers, as well as published gift books. For reference and context, if you would like to see examples of my licensed character work, I will put some links in the description for you. Anyway, so I looked over the class content and the format, and I realized that the way people consume information, especially these days, because I think that this is something that's really fluid right now. There are so many classes online, so many different ways to learn and different formats and stuff. It just seemed like in my class, it was too dense. There was just too much content in one class, and I didn't want to overwhelm people with all that content at once. So I decided I could split the class into 3 separate modules, and the participant could sign up for 1, 2, or all 3. That seemed workable, and it seemed to work with the content delivered in the class. So then I looked at the content I delivered in each module. It was here that I realized that a fair amount of my course qualified more as a lecture with related exercises that could be done later and less as a workshop, like a see what I do, get it, now you do it. So this is totally fine, but it's just not typical of how people are consuming information these days. And also in the larger niche of art and biz classes that are available and popular today, it just didn't fit in with that sort of template. When you want people to take your class and learn from it, you sort of have to make changes in how you deliver the information to deliver it in a way that people are available to absorb it, So that's that. So much of the course was not a type in which I show you how to do something and then you do it and then you have a finished product. It was more cerebral, more like thinky, less immediately stepped focused and implementable right then and there. It was actionable and implementable, and there was accompanying worksheets and exercises, but in terms of see what I do, now you do it. That was not the template that the class, shared. So for instance, I could tell people that by the end of the class, they would have the tools to create a pitch to a publisher or licensee, but I couldn't necessarily tell them that by the end of the class, they would have in their hands or on their computer a completed and final pitch ready to send to their publisher or licensee, a pitch that they created during the class with me in steps. I don't like to tell people how to do things. I like to offer, this is how I do it. And so that really played into how I delivered my content in my class. And then, hey, you can do it this way or you can do it that way. But it wasn't like a step by step. So at the end of the day, this was something that was perplexing for me. And it was something I couldn't reconcile with myself in terms of delivering the information. And this was a major problem. There is one module in the class where a learner can directly and immediately apply the lesson, but it's still not like watch me do it and then you do it type of thing. But it is really super crystal clear. This is one module that I felt comfortable that I could break into a single independent class. That one would be, the easiest one to sort of wrap up in a package and deliver. So anyway, on the whole, this was not an easy fix. I had to look at what was a natural way for me to teach and how I could reformat every section to have directly actionable content that the student could immediately implement. Now, we'll go back to the heart of it, the subject matter of the entire class and how it influenced me dropping the project. At the time I was working on this class, I was also struggling with whether to keep going every day with my comic Cats at Work. Cats at Work is a comic I started in 2014. I started it with the ultimate desire to have it be licensed on products, and that is what happened. I did the comic 5 days a week so I could sort of build up my portfolio, and then I was able to package it and sell it to manufacturers for licensing. So I did that for a few years. And, at this point, summer 2017, I really needed to do something else for a while. Okay. So that's sort of where I was at. At that time, I needed some distance from everything that had been going on with Cats at Work. I was sort of at a crossroads with it. And so I dropped my work on reformatting the class because it was character brand focused. And that was exactly what I needed a break from. So it was the right thing for me to do, even though it was hey, I just threw away a couple months of work. I was working on it very consistently and I just stopped working on it. And the reason I did that is because, if your heart's not in it, I had to step back, admit this to myself, and sort of move on. No matter who you're working for, what kind of project you're working for, there's always going to be projects that you put a lot of energy and work into, and then for whatever reason, they get dumped. And that's happened to me when I was a sales and marketing designer. I can recall a few very specific things that happened where I worked for a long time and a lot of work on projects that ultimately get dumped. And it just happens in life, you can't predict things. I actually find that sometimes the bigger the crash, the more you remember the lesson and the more you take it to heart and you're able to use that in the future. So I just thought I would share this story because I did talk about the class last year here and there, and it never came to fruition on my own independent platform. And I wanted to share with you why. So I do have 3 big takeaways from this whole experience. Number 1, each platform has their own way of formatting a class or an e-course. It can be challenging to reformat your class when it's initially designed for one specific platform's format. So if you want to reformat your class to go onto a different platform, start with the platform's format and then work out how your class is going to fit into it. And then add and subtract or do whatever you need to do to make it work. In my case, I was going to host the class myself, so I didn't have a platform that had a pre-existing class format. So that sort of tripped me up. I didn't have a roadmap and I really needed one. Number 2, don't be afraid to edit stuff out of your class where needed. People are consuming smaller and smaller chunks of information at a time these days, and you want them to learn small bits quickly, do an exercise, and then have a feeling of accomplishment while also learning something new. That's going to motivate them to keep going. And the absolute worst thing you can do, in my opinion, is to overwhelm your students with too much content that's just too dense for them to fly through so they can get that feeling of accomplishment after working hard and learning something. They'll feel stagnated, they'll feel suffocated, and they might drop out of your class or they might not complete the coursework. The third takeaway is a general one, and it has to do with knowing yourself. Knowing what really, really drives you is really important. For me, if I'm not super passionate about the subject matter at the time that I'm working on it, how am I going to be motivated enough to complete the class and then promote the class? And that was really a sticking point for me because I was thinking about finishing the class and then I was thinking about all the promotion that I was going to do. This just isn't going to work right now for me. So that was, one of the nails in the coffin of this for me. I also think it's really super important to share things that don't work out because so many things we try don't ultimately work out the way we wanted them to. When they do work out, they maybe sometimes work out in a way that you totally didn't expect them to work out. And sometimes, you think something fails, but it actually later on, it sort of bubbles into something else, another project. And whenever I have a project that I put down for a while for whatever reason, it turns into something else after some reflection and space. It's like the life cycle of a creative idea. And maybe I'll explore it in another video sometime. But it is something I'm fascinated with, and it's something I use as a creative tool for myself. I'm constantly going back and looking at sketches and stuff that I do and finding ways to use it in future products and stuff like that. So, and I also also feel like nothing's really a failure. If you keep the idea and use it in something else, things are not black and white like that, you know? So yeah, that's it for today. I hope you found something in my story that you could relate to or that helps you if you're struggling with a creative or a logistical problem with some project that you're working on. If you have any projects that you have killed for whatever reason, please share it in the comments. I'd love to hear about it and keep the conversation going. Anyway, that's it for today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay? Take care. Bye-bye.